Romale me vorbiva anglicko ship con čižane šukar anglicka mogla fumentelene translacija pošla. Dear ladies and gentlemen, honorable members of the parliament, honorable ambassadors, dear representatives of the European Roma and Traveller Forum, of the Roma National Congress, of the International Roman Union, and the International Roma Women's Network. Let me present you with my speech on the evil reality of Antiziganism. Antiziganism or Antigysyism. The European Center for Antiziganism Research will use the term Antiziganism in its international English language work, thus refraining from the term Antigysyism. We decided against the commonly used English term because it only refers to the Roma, Gypsies, in English-speaking territories like Great Britain and Ireland, while the rest of Europe uses closely related terms like Zigeuner, Tsigan, Cingane, Zigane. Thus, this linguistic root, Tsigan, is better suited for the usage in a terminological definition for the entirety of Europe. The term Antiziganism allowing an identification of the problem on a national as well as on the international level. For example, a Romanian might not make a direct connection between the word Antigysyism and the Tsigans in his homeland. The term Antigysyism therefore only makes sense in the context of the special national Antiziganism in the English-speaking territories of Europe and the US. Antiziganism has to be understood as an instrument of stigmatization, whose intent is not to observe and understand the circumstances of the other side, but to find elements of identification that legitimate separation and other discriminative actions against those others. Antiziganism is utterly free and unfiltered by the majority population. Thus, it hardly matters if a community of gypsies have been living nearby for decades, their neighbors still consider them as nomads. 672 years ago, the Roma entered the continent together with the Turks during the Ottoman Empire's invasion of Europe. This is probably the reason why they were initially feared and distrusted, a notion that remained in the European consciousness and has been nourished until our present day. The Antiziganism research was started by the European Center for Antiziganism Research in the year 2003. So we are just working 15 years on this topic. While the hate against Jews, the persecution and extermination of the Jewish people, old and new anti-Semitism, has been experienced great amounts of public attention and broad scientific analysis for a long time, this does not hold true in any equal measures for the concerns toward the Antiziganism the Roma minority is facing everywhere. The curse of Antiziganism. The fact is generally ignored that Roma managed to survive for more than 1,000 years in a hostile environment only because of their exceptional ability for assimilation and integration. With this, they weathered prejudice and Antiziganism, their resulting discrimination, racism, and the end of the spiral, murder, and the historical genocide during the Nazi era and the Yugoslavian wars and Kosovo. Antiziganism have left the Roma and their fellow groups crippled, both physically and psychologically, only worried about survival. Okay, Malokas. Feeding the hunger for food and not the only and not one for the knowledge. Poverty through exclusion. This is the result of the systematic anti-Ziganism in Europe. 15 million people neglected and ignored by a society that does not want them and consider itself right to hold this position. Anti-Zyganist prejudice remain to be unsolved and manifestly fixed within wide sections of the population, but also within the media, the institutions, the daily politics, and the daily life. They are publicly expressed unfiltered. The anti-Zyganism, different than the anti-Semitism, has continued to exist to our present day. It exists on a level of society, on all levels of society, and is therefore considered as completely normal. This apparently is a declaration of enemy status within society that can be felt mentally as well as physically. Anti-Zyganism is a part of Europeans' cultural heritage. The Roma are faced with a European society that does not deal with them as humans, but only sees them in their own gypsy image. This image thinking is the basic problem of anti-Zyganism nowadays. It explains the identity and the actions of the Roma to the majority population without taking any notice of their actual living reality. Migration movements of the Roma are only flight attempts, trying to escape persecution of violent conflicts in certain regions, or just trying to survive in a hostile environment. People flee when they feel threatened. This pattern of flight, wrongfully habitualized as nomadization, had its share in the survival of the Roma people in 600 years diaspora in Europe. Anti-Zyganism can be found in all classes of the European majority society, rich as well as poor, educated as well as unliterary, from the north to the south and from the west to the east. On the basis of a much spread racism in the middle classes and in the academic world, scientists performed discriminating investigations about these people under the signum of gypsy research. During the time of National Socialism, apparently with a clear conscience and scientific pretense, sometimes helped by the police forces in their empirical investigations, their research did the preliminary work for the ensuring and gruesome politics of banishment and annihilation that led to the Holocaust on Roma. Respected scientists produced the intellectual material for an irresponsibility policy, which then put these allegations into praxis. Even in the democratically constituted post-war Germany, discrimination and persecution against the Roma and Sinti continued, sometimes led by the same persons and state offices that also took care of the planned European genocide on the Roma during World War II. We, the European Center for Anti-Zyganism Research, have learned from these experiences. The historical reflected and science-philosophically constituted ethical position of the scientists in our organization is geared to the basic decision not to do research about Roma, neither for them, but with them. With them. This is a principal approach that should be copied on all levels of European societies to honestly include Roma in the countries where they are citizens. The European Center for Anti-Zyganism Research cooperates with scientific institutions, universal and non-universal, and social organizations Europe-wide. with the aim of initiating projects that can point out the discriminating elements in the attitudes of an institutional majority populations towards the Roma. In addition, our organization supports political initiatives that take active part in sustaining the cultural identity of the Roma people on the one hand, while positively accompanying the social integration process on the other. That's why I came to this important event and hope that you could get an insight into the anti-Ziganism research work. The central aim of our organization is to create a general understanding that minorities within a society are not an existential threat, but can very well be a cultural enrichment. Anti-Ziganism must be considered as a European cultural heritage. Already during the childhood, the individual is faced with a decision. A, do I form and understand to my own opinion, just questioning the values and prejudices of my own parents? Or B, do I believe what my parents tell me? Of course, most of the people unquestionably follow the views of their parents, because they are the instance of truth for all children. This manner of relaying values, transitions, and prejudices from one generation to the next has been apparent in all European countries and in all social classes for centuries. Let me give you a citation of Adolf Hitler. The great breadth of a nation falls for a big lie much easier than for a small one. Mai but manushan de Ignatia, mai sigo parent pe baro hohavipe sar pe signo. This This transition manifests itself in a mental as well as in a palpable inner social declaration of enemy status against those who are not supported to be assimilated or integrated. The majority society legitimates its anti-Ziganistic behavior against the Roma and Sinti because the individuals see their own actions and attitudes in a subjectively logical context that is shared by the whole society. Historical anti-Ziganistic prejudice. In the 15th and 16th centuries, we had anti-Ziganistic laws. From the 16th to the 19th centuries, we had Europe-wide markings of Roma and killings of them individually. Between the 16th and the 21st centuries, deportations and resettlements, so that Roma were deported from the United Kingdom to the United States, or from Portugal to Brazil, or from Spain to Mexico. In the 20th and 21st century, we're facing again genocides, gypsy offices, adoptions and sterilizations. Summary. Anti-Ziganism prevents equal treatment and therefore every attempt of integration, inclusion and tolerance of the Roma into the majority society, of the respective states they are living in, although they are their rightful citizens. Because of anti-Ziganism, the Roma in all of Europe lack the protection of their basic democratic rights, especially the right for equal treatment, which should... N-ai translația.
I would like if it's possible. Deci, vă rog...
Bine, ca dosta si šta.
Mica mau te dați după bani și o minut.
Gata sam.
Tek minutul de...
Sarakana. Romanes, anglitska sarkame. Okay. Let me give you the last sentence in English. The discourse on anti-Zyganism in and with the national societies is an elementary component to achieve the goal of eradicating the European anti-Zyganism. Thank you for your attention.
Mulțumim mult. Thank you very much for your statement. I would like very much to please you just to keep it very